All right, guys. Today I want to talk about something that affects pretty much all of us, and I don't really hear people talk about a whole lot. And that's the fact that most people's future is already being written, and they don't even realize it. It's not being written by fate, it's not being written by luck, but it's being written by a handful of quiet decisions that they make in their 20s that feel normal, harmless, and typically pretty fun. But fast forward 5 years, and one version of you is free, building wealth, and not even think about it. Or there's another version that's stressed, living paycheck to paycheck, just stuck in survival mode, and they're wondering where it all went wrong. Okay? This video is not about working harder. It's about spotting money traps. It's about spotting them now before they quietly shape the rest of your life. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to name 5 here, and I'm going to list how they can potentially set you back decades. So the big one, I think the most important one, is debt. Okay? Debt is something that for some reason, as a country here in America, we just accept as something that everybody does. I see people, they want to talk about investing and they want to obsess over getting their 10% returns. Meanwhile, they're sitting on 30% credit card debt. That's like trying to run up an escalator that's going down. You can't out-invest that. Here's a quick breakdown of how that breaks out. Let's say you have $5,000 in credit card debt. Let's be conservative. And it's at 30%. That's pretty typical. That's $1,500 a year that's in the trash, just vanishing, before you even pay that $5,000 down. That's $1,500 that you're paying for the privilege of borrowing money that you've probably already used for consumption. So what I'm going to recommend is avoid debt at pretty much all costs, and absolutely avoid credit card debt or any sort of high interest debt. And instead, what you want to do is pay that off and then start to invest. And it's basically the opposite of debt. Instead of your money working against you, it's working for you. I won't go too hard into it. I have a ton of videos on my channel about it. But avoid debt like the plague. I don't care if people say, you'll hear people say shit in your life like, oh, but everybody, no, they don't. Maybe you need a mortgage, probably. Maybe you need a car loan. By the time you get to your 30s, I'm not recommending taking car loans anymore. But that's about it, man. Otherwise, if you can't afford it cash, you can't afford it. That's all I'll say on it. Number 2. We'll bundle this into general partying. I'm talking about drinking, people like substances, all that stuff. I see a lot of people do it in their 20s. Definitely, I like to go out and drink a ton in my 20s, and it probably set me back a ton. Honestly, it's probably one of the biggest regrets I have, and I'll get into it a little bit. So it's more than just money, but it's also money, man. Drinking is so expensive. Going out drinking especially. Say you can get a 6-pack at home for $10. To get that same sort of a buzz in a bar is easily $60 if you live in any city that I've ever been to in America. Add Ubers, you add late night food. I mean, it's hundreds of dollars a weekend, typically, in my personal experience. But this one goes far past money. This is momentum. This is momentum that's being taken away from you at a key point in your life in your 20s. I spent way more Saturdays and Sundays than I'd like to admit in my 20s sitting on a couch, hungover, and I didn't even think about it until years later. Those were key days I could have been out working out, I could have been out building something, I could have been doing something to better my life. But I sat there and I binge watched the same Netflix shows or the same YouTube channels that I'd already seen, and I was just in pain, and my body was physically paying for it. And it's just a waste, man. It's a waste of money, it's a waste of time, it's a waste of energy, and it will catch up with you. So, I don't know. If you're in your early 20s, be smarter than me. Use that time well, because your early 20s don't last forever. And the problem with your early 20s is they feel like they're going to last forever. At least it did for me. Anyway, number 3. Expensive cars. This is typically a thing that people do when they get their big boy job. They'll get out of college or they'll go into the trade or something. They'll start making a real salary. And listen, if you're into cars, I get it. We all got to have things that we choose to spend our money on. But if you're buying a car just to impress people, that is not a good thing to do. And if you're financing it at a higher rate, typically the more debt you're putting onto it, the more you have to finance it. It's even worse. Okay? So just because you can make the payment on a car doesn't mean you have to. If you're sitting there paying $800, $900 a month for 5 years on a car, and all it's doing is getting you from point A to point B, and you could have bought a $9,000 used car and paid it off cash, imagine what you could do with that extra $800 a month. If you invested that over the course of, whatever the life of that loan was, 5 years, I mean, that would be tens of thousands of dollars in your pocket. But instead, same thing, you're going the opposite way, and that debt's being money in the trash every month. So it just breaks my heart. Do what you want, but I'd highly recommend that. I'd highly recommend going cheaper with the car. I'm 34 years old and I'm on my second car. I bought a 97 Maxima when I was in high school, rode it till the wheels fell off, bought a used 2012 Honda Accord in 2014, and I'm still driving that car today. And And if I can drive it for another 5 years, I'll drive it for another 5 years. It's got 170,000 miles on it. I don't care. I do not want a car payment. Number 4, and this one is huge, man. This one will really, really set you back for the rest of your life. And that is buying a house you can't afford. You don't want to be house poor. If you've heard the term, basically it's you get yourself overextended and essentially all your disposable income goes to the house. And this will affect you in a number of ways. I mean, your day-to-day sanity is going to be affected hugely. The stress of waking up not knowing if you're going to be able to pay your bills, you don't want it. It's just for your mental health. It puts you in that survival mode I'm talking about. It makes it so you don't have any money to save, any money to invest. You can't breathe. Something goes wrong. Something breaks. You're scrambling. Then you're taking on debt. Now you're throwing more money in the trash, and it just kind of snowballs in the wrong direction, I mean, in my personal experience, what I did was when I was in college, I waited. I lived at home. I know not everyone has this privilege, but I lived at home at my parents' house for 2 years. And honestly, I was spending more than I should have been spending, but I did at least manage to stack some money. Then when I moved out, I got roommates. I lived in a row home over in the city. It was $770 a month. And, I probably could have afforded to live on my own. It would have been more impressive and prestigious, but I would have been broke. And then when my wife and I got married, we moved into a townhouse that we can easily afford. We could put 20% down on, and we can still afford to save a ton of money on top of it. We both make decent money. A lot of people who are making the same money of us would have went and fully extended whatever a bank would have gave them. We chose not to. And as a result, we've been able to save hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it's just, now if we want to go buy something, we can. Now if something breaks, it's okay, we can replace it. Now if one of us gets fired or something, have a health issue, we can afford to cover it. And had we just gone out and bought everything we could have afforded, we wouldn't be able to. And not only that, man, you're on that treadmill for years typically if you can't raise your income when you're house poor. So just really, really, if you only take one, all right, the next one's actually probably more important, but that is a super important thing. And then finally, the fifth thing, do not marry the wrong person. Really suss this one out. If you're marrying someone due to societal pressure, or if you're marrying someone just because you've been with them for a long time, or just what you think it's supposed to do, listen, man, I've been married. I love my wife. I think she's the best. I'm going to tell you, being married is very, very, very hard. Even when you're with the right person, even when you both have the right intentions, even when it's white picket fence and 2.5 kids, it is challenging. Not being able to operate with autonomy, especially not being able to operate with autonomy from a financial perspective, is crazy. Say you marry someone who's super financially responsible, that is how divorce happens. And don't get me started on divorce, man. You want to talk about financial ruin. You're getting cut in half. But a lot of people in their 20s, they're impressionable. They don't think things through all the way. They kind of you get caught up in this path that life takes you on. They go, this is what you're supposed to do. I don't care if your mom says it. I don't care if your friends say it. I don't care if all the TikTokers say it. You do not have to marry. You don't have to get married if you don't want to. Do not marry the wrong person. Marriage is one of the best things in the world. It makes your life so much better if it's what you want, but just make sure it's what you want. So I guess that's all I'll say on that. In closing here, these traps in your 20s are everywhere. And they don't feel like traps because society encourages them oftentimes, and you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, and there's ego involved. And candidly, man, nobody lays down a manual for this stuff. I've got pretty smart people in my life who gave good guidance in a lot of ways, but a lot of people are just blind to these traps. And I was in my early 20s to some degree. Fortunately, I didn't make any big mistakes. But the smarter you are at this time, the more you're gonna, struggle today to live easy tomorrow. The more frugally you can live, the more you can do things right in your early 20s. You are just gonna set yourself up for a life that, tell you what, your other 40, 50-year-old equals when you get to that age, you're going to be looking around, they're going to be like, dude, how do I get like you? You got to get a time machine is all you can tell them, because this is the fruits of, this is the result of seeds I planted in my 20s. That's what you tell them. So that's what I want for you. That's what I want for everybody. Wishing you all wealth, health, and happiness and all that. If you stuck around this long, subscribe, all that stuff really helps the channel. And if not, many more videos to come. Go check out the channel if you're interested in these kind of talks. Peace.